I sat on the couch in my living room while my life fell apart around me. I could still hear the mechanic outside as he tinkered with my car, most likely assuring it would never run again. My son had run away to play with the monstrous children in this town that was holding us both prisoner. I know there were many things I could have done. Made the trek to the outside world on foot on my own and come back with the real police. Held a knife on the mechanic until he put my car back in working order. Gone on a vehicular rampage until they agreed to give me my son back. But I was not the woman then that I am now. My thought process moved in panic loops. One thought kept coming back. No matter how many times I tried to banish it, the clown knows something. I remembered his face as he looked at my son. You'd think the only living clown would be happy to see a new disciple, but no. He had looked dismayed at my son's transformation. It was the first normal reaction I had seen since I had came to this town. I waited until dark. The mechanic left hours before, leaving car parts scattered all around my driveway. The destroyed clown statues hadn't been taken, but new ones sat in the empty spaces until you couldn't see a single inch of lawn. I resisted the urge to kick one over as I snuck out of my house. I did not have any set plan at this point. I had packed one of my kitchen knives for self-defense, but beyond that, I was prepared for nothing. What would I do? What would I say? That would all depend on the clown. I didn't travel by the road. I sulked through yards and occasionally hopped fences. I was wary at all times of being watched. But by the time I hit the school, I was fairly confident I hadn't been followed. The school had a baseball diamond and a soccer field to the south. Beyond that was a cluster of trees, probably left over from the town's development. I crept through the bushes, not sure of what I was looking for, until I heard the sound of canned laughter. A little ways into the trees was a shack made of corrugated tin. I could see the glow of light in the window as I crept up and peered inside. There were only 4 pieces of furniture in the shack, a metal cot, a bureau, and a bar stool that held a black and white television and a folding chair. The clown sat in the folding chair, nursing a bottle as he watched a rerun of Roseanne. I checked the room for weapons, saw none, and decided to make my entrance. The door was situated within sight of the chair, so there was no element of surprise. I simply opened the door and walked in. The clown glanced up. "Oh, hey," he said, like he was casually greeting an old friend. "I was wondering when I'd see you here." His normal voice was soft, not all what I had expected. I kept my hand on the knife in my pocket. Up close, the clown was even sadder picture than he had been from a distance. His white makeup had cracked away in big patches. I realized that he had probably never washed it off, just slapped another layer on every morning. His puffy hair was lopsided, and up close I could see that the red was peppered with gray. His eyes were sad and brown, and bloodshot inside the grease paint circles. He gave me a limp smile and took a pull from his bottle. "Pull up a chair," he said. "Or don't. It's up to you." Where could I start? "So, you're Buster Brown." He winced. "Ugh, I hate that nickname. Call me Arthur." "That's my real name." "You're Mrs. Hughes." "Miss. Actually, I'm divorced." He clicked his tongue. "That's how they got you. Steel mill laid me off. That's how they got me." I kept thinking, where else am I going to find a place this nice? Then it's too late. They dig at you, don't they? They make you feel worthless. As odd as it was, this was the normal conversation I had had since I arrived in the town. "You know what's happened to my son?" He got sad. "Yeah. Nice kid. What's his name?" "That little bitch Missy just keeps calling him the new boy." "His name's Joshua." The clown smiled slowly. "Huh. Mine was a J too. Jeremiah. That's him over there." He pointed an unsteady finger at the bureau. There was a picture frame made out of glued together popsicle sticks sitting on the top. The boy in the picture had red hair and sticked-out ears. He wore a style of brown-striped shirt that was popular in the early 80s. The boy grinned mischievously at the camera, showing a missing front tooth. That was taken on his 8th, before we came to this place. The clown knocked back another swig. Sorry if I ramble. I haven't had to talk to anyone in a good... God, it's been years. What's happening to my son? I asked curtly. He shot an apologetic look. Sorry. You've noticed he's changing, right? How none of these kids around here look right. Like they're got some sort of disease. I nodded. It's this town. Changes people. Hang on. He grunted as he heaved up from the chair. The clown waddled over to the bureau and opened the top drawer. After a minute of rustling, he tossed 2 photographs onto the chair where he'd been sitting. Had a hell of a time finding these. They were taken back when the town wasn't so smart about leaving a record of things. The top photograph looked like it had been taken in the 1900s or so. Whatever era it was, but still fashionable to photograph corpses being propped upright in their coffin. 5 men, 5 dead men, leered drunkenly at the camera. Their noses and lips were heavily swollen, so were their hands and feet. Their skin was so chalky white it made the sockets of their eyes vanish in the darkness. Their hair was coarse and frizzy, like it stood out around their head in a halo. In some horrible, monstrous way, they looked like... Clowns? I asked. He nodded grimly. The second photo was also in black and white, but in much better condition. It was taken at a party of some sort. By the look of the clothing and hairstyles, it was in the 50s. A girl that looked like Missy Jackson minus the ugly stood in the front wearing a hair bow and a party dress so aggressively ruffled it stood straight out of her waist. Behind her stood a man with a very eerily familiar shit-eating grin. His hair was greased back and much darker, and his face was younger, but I could still see that it was the welcoming committee, Spencer Jackson. I looked over the photos to the clown. What does this mean? He had sat on the bed, twisting his bottle of cheap liquor. Well, I'll tell you what I put together. I might get a few things wrong, so take it as you will. You see, what this town does to kids, how it twists them. I think they used to become like these men, used to grow in these clown-looking things before dying. People in the town just accepted it. 1 out of 10 kid turns into a clown. Poof! We can live with that. Then it becomes 1 out of 3. Then it was every single one. He took another drink to fortify himself. I think at one point they figured out they couldn't stop the whole thing, but they could stop it, part of it. The thing about this, whatever it is, it makes them obsessed with fun. They figured out that if they indulged the hell out of the kids, they wouldn't molt into these poor bastards. Trouble was, the kids just stopped, period. They don't age, they don't grow, they don't get any prettier. That's for damn sure. I was struggling to take this all in, looking from photograph to photograph. So the children used to turn into these things, but they don't anymore? What happens if you stop indulging them? Let them get angry. Do they turn into clowns? He shook his head. They explode. I stared at him for a good long minute. Look, I know this is a lot to swallow, but trust me, I've seen it firsthand. Your son run a lot of fevers these days. That's part of it. They get real hot and then boom! Like a meat grenade. Do you have proof of this? As an answer, he removed his leg from below the knee. The clown chuckled a little bit at my expression. A little souvenir from the last time I tried to go against the grain. He tapped the metal shin rod of his prosthetic leg. It was my little Jerry. The only reason why I'm still here to talk about it is because of my wife. She was standing right in front of me, took the full blast. His eyes got all misty. I got lucky, as funny as that sounds. The older they are, the bigger the boom. Jerry was only here long enough to take out his mom and me. When someone like Missy Jackson goes off, he sucked air over his teeth. I was staring at the pictures with horrible sinking feeling. How long were you here when Jerry went off? 3 weeks. I had been in this town for nearly 2 months. After I got out of the hospital, they started in on me, he said. They had paid for my stay, and now I owed them. I was already low. Now they picked at me. Said if I had just been a better father, none of this would have happened. They told me that I upset the other kids with what I did, and I needed to fix it. At some point, I started shaking with rage. And that's pretty much of it. I'm a living ghost. I can go into the store and take what I need any time, and they won't look twice at me. As long as I keep the kids busy, they don't care. He took another swig. The bottle was nearly empty. I don't get it, I said. If the town's atmosphere is that dangerous, why do they invite more people in? Why would you want more children if that's the end result? He shrugged heavily. I guess in a sick way they need it. They want to believe the way they live is the right way, and the best way to prove it is to get more converts. That makes no logical sense. Not saying they run a logic, just saying. I looked good and hard at him. So if you've lived here for so long without talking, why are you telling me now? Not to get too personal, but I like you. You got spunk. I saw that the first day of school. Been a long time since I seen that here. He grinned at me. As oddly reassuring as that was, I didn't feel any better about after our talk. No, now I was just more aware of how much danger my son was in and how helpless I was to stop it. I need to find Joshua, I said. I have to get him out of here and get to a doctor. Maybe find out what's wrong with him. Maybe fix him, were the words that caught in my throat. He gave me a morose look. Hasn't anyone ever tried it? There have been others, yeah. The way he said it let me know exactly how it went. I don't care. My son is all I have left in this world, and I am going to fight for him. He toasted me with the empty bottle. That's the spirit. Before I went out to the door, he gave me a sweaty handshake. Best of luck to you. Give him one for me. I will, Mr. Brown. Arthur, he reminded me. Arthur, I repeated back. You can call me Denise. Bye, Denise. It was nice talking to someone for real once. Yeah, I said, it was. Before I stepped out, I had to ask one last thing. At some point, didn't you stop feeling like you owed them? Why didn't you just leave? Why don't you have anything left for them to take away? He gave me a morose look. I stay for the kids, Denise. It's not their fault they are like this. Outside the shack, I could see lights circling the hills surrounding Clinton. Probably search parties. My absence hadn't gone unmissed. It would be bad time to strike out on foot. I walked aimlessly through the school grounds, trying in vain to plain escape. Perhaps I could start a fire as a distraction. I wasn't too attached to my house anymore. I could hear any excitement whispering as I circled the baseball diamond, a cluster of children huddled around the bleachers. I could hear the croaking of some poor tortured animal. With horrible clarity, I could see the back of my son's head and the shirt I had got him at the Grand Canyon. Joshua, I called. The children scattered, giggling as they ran. Josh ran too, not fast enough. I locked my hand around his upper arm. Joshua, Don't you run from me again." He twisted in my grip, brattily distorting his face. His bone structure was already becoming pronounced in the strange way the town's children had. His arm burned in my grasp. "Let go," he whined, face becoming redder and redder. "I want to go play." I must say, with absolute sincerity, that I am not proud of what I did next. I was frightened that my own child was becoming a stranger to me, and that I had no power to prevent it. So I grasped at the only tool left to me. "Joshua," I said, "do you remember Daddy?" He stopped moving immediately. "Do you remember how he left? How he took all of his things out of the house and went away?" I pulled him until he faced me. "I will do that, Joshua. I want to protect you, but in order for me to do that, you have to listen to me, Joshua. If you don't listen to me, I have to leave." His temperature dropped. "Mommy, don't leave," he said in a tiny voice. He hugged me. It felt like years since he had done that. I didn't deserve that hug, but I returned it all at the same. "I won't, if I can help it," I said, petting his hair. "But we do need to get out of here. This place isn't really our home, Joshua. It's like the candy house in Hansel and Gretel. It pretends to be nice, but it's really mean." "How can we get out?" Josh said, in my shirt. "Billy said all the dads in town are looking for you." I looked up at the searchlights on the hills. "I'll think of something."